A lot of woodworkers I know dream of building a shop in the country. You know, peace and quiet, surrounded by nature, and lots of trees, the natural material that inspires us. But not me. Our family, we went through that phase. When I was a kid, my parents bought 84 acres in the northwest Arkansas wilderness, where we built my dad's workshop and the big house where we do plan to live. We were surrounded by armadillos, strip mining, and lots of trees, the natural material that kept falling on our buildings. The big house never got finished. My parents divorced. And after a decade of my life working at the farm with my family, I left Arkansas for the biggest city that would have me, Chicago. Maybe I got tired of the passive solar shower, the composting toilets, or the lack of air conditioning in the Arkansas summer. Or maybe I just decided I wanted my marriage to last. For whatever reason, I set up shop eventually in the inner city. It's a small city called Covington. It's in the shadow of Cincinnati, Ohio. Think of it how Brooklyn is to Manhattan. When we moved here, my shop was in the red light district, with 3 shifts of prostitutes working the parking lot across the street. I learned a lot about inner city life those first years, and the working women learned some stuff too. Fun fact, prostitutes love to watch turning on the lathe. No clue why. Many of my woodworking friends told me I was crazy to move here. I was told it was dangerous, my stuff would get stolen, I'd have a heck of a time getting materials and finished goods in and out of the city. Turns out, most of the people who are afraid of cities don't live in cities. I haven't found it to be dangerous at all. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When I bought this place, I didn't know how to operate the weird lock on the front door. As a result, I left the entire building completely unlocked for 3 whole weeks. Nothing was stolen. Nobody bothered the place. My neighbors watch over the building, and we all look out for each other. Case in point, once I was lying under my workbench doing some work on a tail vise, and the front door was wide open on this beautiful spring day. Several neighbors ran up to the door to help me, worried that I had fallen or had a heart attack. On another occasion, I was running this foot race with my youngest daughter down 9th Street. She was just barely winning, and I could almost grab her. And all of a sudden, all these drivers started honking and yelling, "Hey, leave that girl alone! I'm calling the cops!" In fact, the only trouble we've had has been because of the prostitutes. At night, they would use our front stoop to conduct business, and the neighbors would call the cops to break up the party. The cops told me I had to do something or I was going to lose my business license. So we installed the, quote, prostitute repellent light above the front door. And though many people have asked me, I don't know where you can get a prostitute attractor light. In any case, the problem was solved. For the most part, having an urban shop has been fantastic. My neighbors and even people experiencing homelessness have brought me tools such as this machinist square, clamps, building materials, and other things that turn up in a city that has been going strong for more than 200 years. But one of the biggest advantages of working in the city have been access to other artisans, access to work from customers, and the architecture around me. From my front step, I can see 2 upholstery shops, an architectural millwork shop, and a laser shop. On a nice day, I can walk across the Clayway Bailey Bridge and visit our foundry, where we've made hundreds of holdfasts for woodworkers all over the world. Our city is brimming with machine shops, laser shops, water jet cutting shops, welders, and other engineering shops which help us with tool making, and with the occasional weird part for a machine or a busted casting. We also have our share of old-school blacksmiths here who make our custom hinges, latches, nails, whatever we need in iron, and all within a 5-minute drive. One of the bigger surprises of moving here was how much work comes walking in through the front door. Really, more work than I've ever been able to handle. Build a bar for a Mexican restaurant, walnut tables for the fancy fried chicken restaurant, shutters for the courthouse, windows for a company rehabbing its building, and requests to repair hundreds and hundreds of chairs. These days, I refer most of this work to other artisans. Truth is, I didn't move to Willard Street in Covington for the access to the other artisans, the access to work, or the call girls. The real reason I moved my shop here was to personally be surrounded by the architecture. Like any old city, Covington is filled with buildings, mostly 19th century structures that run the gamut from falling down to drop dead gorgeous. When we landed here, I vowed to walk every street, every alley of the city, and have pretty much fulfilled my promise. I spend a lot of time studying buildings' proportions, the window layout, and how everything is scaled for the viewer. In fact, I contend that if you wake up every morning in a city and take it in every day, you'll never struggle to figure out how drawers and doors should be arranged on a case piece, or what is a pleasing overall shape or an awkward shape. All these lessons are arrayed before your eyes everywhere you look all day and night. It's like garbage in, garbage out, beauty in, beauty out, suburbs in, suburbs out. It is no secret that furniture design is the child of architecture. Like most woodworkers, I have tons of books on furniture, and I use them to help educate and inspire my designs. But I had no idea how the buildings around me, even the contemporary ones, could also directly influence what I make at the bench. Let's start with the big stuff. Greek columns and their buildings are the starting point for understanding both architecture and furniture. Every column has a base, which is mostly made up of the plinth, and then there's the shaft. At the top is a capital. Buildings will have a foundation, the main structure, and the roof, just like a column. And when one of these things is missing, it looks off, unbalanced. Most traditional casework has the same parts: a base or plinth, a case, and some sort of crown. When one of these elements is missing, things can look awkward, avant-garde, or just like a cardboard box. Studying the proportions of columns can teach you a lot about whole number ratios that are baked into good design, and studying the details of the column orders can teach you a lot about the decorative details of buildings and furniture. Some of it directly applies. Almost all columns have entasis, that slight swelling of the shaft that prevents the column from looking anemic or even concave. That entasis is essential to chair makers like me. That subtle swelling of a chair's spindle is essential to making the chair look alive and not like a jail cell. But the books can only take you so far, so let's hit the streets to see what we can learn. One thing you quickly learn when looking at old buildings are the shapes we find pleasing are repeated over and over. We like squares combined with rectangles. This old police station is the same proportions as my tool chest, square on the end and a 2 to 3 rectangle on the adjacent face. And you'll find squares combined with rectangles over and again in furniture. Sometimes a square is hiding, take away the plinth and the crown, but it's usually there. And look for rectangles that are 2 to 3, 3 to 5, or 4 to 7. These are a few of the pleasing whole number ratios that can translate into furniture. I actually have little sheets of cardboard that I sometimes carry in my pocket that help me spot these proportions in buildings when I take a walk. And though I resisted it at first, some modern architecture can inspire your designs. Here's the Ascent. It's a building that was designed by Daniel Lipskin and built in 2005 here in Covington. This is not the kind of architecture I look to for lessons generally. It's one of those buildings that insists upon itself. But after living with it for 15 years, I began to appreciate it more as a piece of sculpture, though not as a place I'd want to live inside of. My wife has been in there and she says, there isn't a square corner in the whole place. Good luck finding a place for all the giant wooden rectangles you own. But what I like about the building is it's difficult to pin down its shape exactly. Every view is a little disorienting. Is it a big tube of lipstick? The prow of a giant container ship? It does have a lot of upward motion and curves, what some designers would call a gesture. And as it turns out, it was exactly the gesture I was looking for when I designed my version of a Scottish Darvel chair. I wanted it to sweep upward toward the comb and terminate in a sweeping curve. I don't think my chair is as disorienting as a Lipskin sculpture, but it honestly was the genesis for this chair. Heck, I even painted one blue as a tip of the hat to the Ascent. During 2020, I spent a good part of the year trying to redesign the so-called firehouse Windsor chair that emerged in the 19th century and became the prototype for what I call the tartar sauce Windsor. The dark and horrible chairs in every seafood restaurant in America. They got these bulbous turnings, heavy components, and they're stained by food as much as by pigment. The problem with low backs is they don't offer much support for your back, and so they're uncomfortable after 30 or 40 minutes, and so that's perhaps so you don't linger over your cod. From a comfort point of view, I decided to mate the Jenny Alexander ladder back with the Windsor low back and hope that the baby lived. One of the things that makes the Jenny chair so comfortable is this top slat. It's a 12-inch radius curve that's tilted about 28 or 30 degrees off 90. The slat is about 4 inches wide. Those numbers are really similar to the back of the Irish Gibson chair. This is another chair that I build. Obviously, these chairs look absolutely nothing alike. The question was, how do I graft this back support, which looks really dramatic and extreme, onto a stick chair with a continuous arm? The answer actually came to me while on a morning walk along the Ohio River through one of the parks. The curved seating in this amphitheater and a smaller seating area for intimate performances, it hit me just right over the head. These curved areas are usually cut into the landscape, and they're stepped backwards as they rise, and we have a lot of examples of them here in Cincinnati on both sides of the river. I figured that I could easily cut that curve out of a solid chunk of 3-inch thick lumber with a 12-inch radius and a 30-degree slope, and graft it onto the arm of my chair. That would give me the back support that was about 4 inches tall, just like the Jenny chair. I had to come up with some way to make that huge chunk of wood look more delicate, so I cut some curves on the ends to lighten it visually. There was some other engineering that had to be done, of course. I had to move the whole arm back about 1.5 inches, but after 3 prototypes, I had a chair that was dang comfortable and didn't look like a Red Lobster refugee. I did this one in red as a tip of the hat to the lobster. In addition to stealing proportions and shapes, the decorative details of a building can be a gold mine for a furniture designer. So to show you how useful it can be as a designer to live in a city, we're going to take a walk through my neighborhood. Only a block, really. Walk around the block and take a look at some of the decorative details that I see every day if we just slow down and pay attention. And we'll listen to some bluegrass music while you look at these decorative details and see if it can spark ideas in your own mind.
Wake up, darling, call me. One make you sleep sometime. Those highway robbers are coming. Gonna tear your still house down.
Hey, me again, just making sure you weren't dozing off there. I know we've been looking at tied up details, but I want to show you one of my favorite large details here on the street. This is Grace United Church, one of the early German churches here in Covington from the 1860s, less than a block down from our street. The church is missing its steeple. But other than that, it's still nice and intact. And the form of this church, which is one of the earlier Victorian Gothic churches here in the city is always very inspiring to me to look at the stonework and everything. The nickname for this was the Church of the Pumpernickel, because one of the benefactors of the church happened to be a very prominent German baker. If you want to know why that's funny, look up what pumpernickel means in German.
First time that I saw darling Corey, had a wine glass in her hand. She was drinking down her trouble with that low down sorry man. Last night, as I lay on my pillow, last night as I lay on my bed, last night as I lay on my pillow, I dreamed darling Corey was dead.
Me again, not all the architecture in Covington is Victorian or, Greek Revival. It's not all 19th century. There are huge neighborhoods of arts and crafts and later, including lots and lots of deco stuff from the 30s. Behind me is one of my other favorite places here, less than a block from our shop. This was once one of the movie theaters here on Main Street, and it is now Mike's Music, which is filled with thousands and thousands of beautiful vintage and antique instruments, mostly guitars. Whenever big bands come, they always stop at Mike's Music to check it out. The stage is still there, and the music is still there, but no more movies.
Shoulder up the gun and a whistle up the dog. Shoulder up the gun and a whistle up the dog. Go way to the backwoods, catch a groundhog, groundhog. Run your saddle with a 10-foot pole. Run your saddle with a 10-foot pole. Twist this groundhog out of his hole, groundhog. Got the meat in the cupboard and the hide in the kern. Got the meat in the cupboard and the hide in the kern. If it ain't groundhog, got that burn, groundhog. Here comes Sally with a snicker and a grin. Here comes Sally with a snicker and a grin. Got groundhog grease all over her chin, groundhog. I went to work and I tanned that hide. I went to work and I tanned that hide, and I made the best shoestrings I ever tied, groundhog.
Okay, promise, last interruption. Here we are in the former market square area of Covington. This used to be a giant open-air food market with butchers and vegetables and all that. It's gone, but it's replaced with a nice plaza where we have festivals and all that. But it just goes to show that, a lot of cities are not static, and they continue to change and evolve, and that's a good thing as a furniture designer, because you get to see firsthand some things that could really open your eyes. Let's take a look at a building behind me. So up ahead, we have one of these giant new mixed-use developments going on here in Covington. These are sprouting up all over the city, and the good news is they're filling in all the gaps, the surface parking lots that were created during the 60s and 70s and the age of urban renewal. I think they're pretty ugly. At least this one is incorporating some of the original building that was still standing here. And when we look at the really kind of questionable cladding and color choices here, I think we can conclude that, not all of the old architecture is good and beautiful and can be inspiring as a furniture designer, but also not all the new stuff is terrible too, but some of it is, and I'll leave you with one last slide. As I mentioned earlier, not all contemporary architecture is bad, but some of it really makes me question what the architect was thinking. Here you can see the Great America Tower in downtown Cincinnati. The green thing at the top has charitably been called a tiara. A lot of people around the city have a different name for it, period. If that tiara inspires you as a maker, perhaps a different hobby might be in store for you someday. Thanks for staying awake through the whole presentation, and very much a thanks to Colonial Williamsburg for having me in this very unusual conference, and also for the Early American Industries Association for sponsoring me. I hope you enjoyed your dinner, and I hope we'll all get together and see each other at one of these conferences in the future.